Welcome to the I'm Here podcast. My name is Jeff. I'm your host of this podcast where we talk about all things HR, talent, HR tech, world of work, and so on. We have been doing this podcast, for a while now. And the episodes live on our website, GoScaleHR.com, also on our YouTube channel as well. So, please hit the like button, share your comment. Want to hear from you. So this is a really good episode, as I always say. The topic of this episode today is Beyond the Paycheck, Rethinking Financial Wellbeing at Work. Okay? So, it's a really good episode, and I think it's really relevant today for those of you, that are based in Canada, the US, other places too. I think in my career, I've done a ton of work in well-being, and I've always used Gallup's 5 elements of the well-being, which is career, social, physical, community, and financial. So those are the 5 elements, and then so I've always used that model to help organizations kind of level up on their well-being strategy. I think it's easy for most organizations to actually rally around most of them, but financial well-being, I think, is one area that we haven't done a great job on. In the past, I think the most that we've ever done really is bringing in our financial advisor from a bank to talk about mutual funds and or other small things like that, which is fine, but didn't really get at the root of how to boost someone's well-being on a financial level. So that, I think, is the first thing. I think the point number 2 that I want to make, and this is not meant to be political, in a country like Canada, obviously we've been dealing with cost of living, the affordability, like issues for about 10 years now or longer. And it's a funny fact that in Canada, we have the highest level of private debt per capita on planet Earth, and it's not even. And so, things like inflation, soaring prices on cost of goods, energy, and so on, has slowly but surely chipped away at our purchasing power. And so I think, financial well-being nowadays is probably one of the biggest thing that actually influences the other elements of life, right? So when it comes to mental health, or when it comes to physical health, it comes to relationships and so on. And so I would argue that, financial well-being is probably need to be at the front and center of the conversation. And so today we have, expert in all things when it comes to financial, Antonio Zivanovic of Electrify, which is a brand new startup. And I'll let him talk about it. But Antonio, I just want to welcome you to the podcast.
Thanks for having me here, Jeff. And thanks for a nice synopsis of just an overall picture of where things are at.
Yeah, I mean, we've had many conversations about this. I mean, obviously it's not easy to solve, but obviously the work you do. So maybe give our audience just a little bit of an overview of your background and what you're doing now.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. I've come from maybe unconventional background to working in the space that we are today. I started off, I did my, Bachelor of Human Kinetics, now School of Kinesiology at UBC, and then worked as a health and wellness advisor for BC Hydro and Accenture across the province and then Canada, and then worked my way into like delivering corporate health and wellness programs in the early 2000s when, it wasn't fashion to be delivering these programs and talking about work-life balance. I was really an alien early days when I was delivering these sessions at conferences and to companies. Now people are really starting to take notice of the impacts of the financial instability and how that's linked to mental illness. We're at a situation today where 51% of Canadian families are $200 away from not being able to pay their bills. And so that's kind of brought me along the journey, and through discovery and working in the insurance industry and financial services, we worked with clients and then really identifying the need at scale that we couldn't service. And so I wanted to help people, and I wanted to make a bigger impact by helping more people. And we realized that we couldn't do that without the technology that we've built today with Electrify. And one of the unique things about what we're doing is we're not selling you a product. Like, we're not pushing you into a product. That's specifically not allowed in Electrify. So they're the people that are servicing the clients and supporting people's financial well-being are there to guide them, help them achieve their goals. And it's a very different experience than with a bank or an insurer or other financial institutions. So Yeah.
So getting into the whole, situation, I guess, nowadays with financial well-being, what are you hearing right now from both employees and also employers about the current state of, uh, financial well-being in the workplace? What's different about this moment?
I feel like that's a great question, Jeff. Just before COVID, I feel like the conversation, from my experience and working with hundreds of employers across the country, from small to multi-billion-dollar global organizations, the conversation was all real estate, real estate, real estate, real estate. And then once
Yeah.
COVID happened, it started really, we noticed a different shift from employers to financial well-being and financial stress. And obviously, real estate prices in Canada and places like Toronto and Vancouver, that's inextricably linked to your financial portfolio per se. But a lot more people were experiencing the cost pressures of the inflation and shrinkflation, and their money just isn't going as far. And what we're seeing is, the number one reason for divorce in this country is linked to financial challenges, and arguably a leading cause of mental illness is the financial instability. And so there's an inequality in the systemic injustices in how the system is set up. For many people, they're just never going to have access to great financial advice. And so we want to democratize that access to great financial advice for everyone. And we believe that that should be a fundamental right that everyone has access to, whether you have millions of dollars or you're just starting out and want a plan to move forward, to have hope, to provide for your family.
So that segues into my next question, which is going back to Gallup. So Gallup has this sort of 5-point model, for well-being, and so it defines financial well-being as effectively managing your economic life. So what does this actually look like in 2025?
Well, I think it's really challenging now because there are so many, it's challenging because there are so many moving parts, and how people's financial well-being is impacted can be highly influenced by one tweet. And so the market can fly, to the highest increase since, 2008, or be plummet the, 20%. And so I feel like in actual practice for an individual, it's hard to manage their own financial well-being because, you've got a mortgage in one spot, or your credit cards in one area, your bank accounts you've got multiple bank accounts, you've got bills, recurring expenses from different places, and there are so many changes. And for you to manage all of this, there are a lot of friction points because you have to pull all of these documents. And then also you need to have a baseline of financial literacy to help move through that. And I find that today it's just challenging to manage that as an individual with all of the time pressures that we have.
I would agree with you on that. I think that there's so many different things going on in terms of what we can learn about, finances in general terms. Most people don't have the expertise or knowledge or the time to even navigate or start. I mean, I tell people who are experts in this area, you've got a special gift because you know all of this stuff. But most of us don't. In my career, in my experience, many organizations view a financial wellness as it starts and it ends with your salary. Maybe, there might be a bonus or what have you. There might be an RSP contribution matching program, whatever it is, but it's very limited. What do modern financial wellness programs actually look like?
Thanks, Jeff. I think for years, a lot of programs have just provided educational resources for employees. They've been workshops, they've been budgeting calculators, budgeting apps, tools, but still an individual has to go and do all of the work. They've got to pull all of these documents, do that manually. That takes hours and hours of work. I feel like like today, a shameless plug here, why we're working to solve the problem is we're making this easy for people and for employers. You can pull your data in, and that's all kept confidential. And So you're connecting your bank accounts, your HRIS feed, and all of your data is being aggregated into one simple dashboard for a person to see what's going on and make sense of that. And it's also categorizing all your expenses, helping you with your goals. And there's a human element, but there's also the AI that's helping identify, maybe you've got recurring expenses. Like some people we've identified, they have 2 Netflix subscriptions that they're paying for every month and they didn't even know. And so I feel like it's a combination of human and the AI, and it's really hyper personalizing that journey for each individual. And gone are the days where you just provide a generic, hey, it's good for you to invest.
I'm interesting that you mentioned AI technology and so on. Are you seeing a lot of pushback or people that might be a little bit scared using something that they know will help them, but is AI powered, and it's mixing in with their financial information. When I get there might be people worried that the robot might be coming for you and all this kind of stuff, right? So, but mixing the financial private information of my finances with an AI tool. Are you seeing a lot of conversation around that, pushback, questions?
I think RBC's done some interesting research on this, and so have a number of different institutions. What we're finding with the companies we're working with and across the employee populations is Gen X, Y, Z seem very comfortable in inputting their data, connecting their accounts, working with all the tools readily available to them. As you get older in age in the employees, there seems to be a little bit more skepticism around using some of these tools. And I think that's just maybe that, in general, that's just how people are with technology. But I feel like as their older populations are exposed to these tools from the younger generations, some of them, we're winning some of them over because they're seeing the power of this, seeing how helpful this really is. And so I feel like part of the process is us over communicating all of the steps we've taken to secure people's data and anonymize anything that is ever coming through so that they can never be identified. And so we've worked really hard and invested hundreds of thousands per year to ensure that people's data is kept secure.
Yeah, just like any change, you're always going to have like a bell curve of change where you got your laggards, most of your highest on the bell curve, and then your
late
much early
adopters
adopters like me.
Adopters, yeah.
Like I'm always on stuff like this, which is probably a good thing. But that's just sort of natural, course of life. So I'm just sort of curious about. I know there's been a lot of talk and commentary about like AI. Those are 2 letters that seem to be not demonized, but just sort of an added layer. So I was just wondering about that. What is one cost-effective thing that HR and business leaders could start doing tomorrow to support their employees' well-being in a more, a meaningful way? Is there like low-hanging fruit that they can take on right now?
I think there is. First thing I would say is just bring it, obviously people's financial literacy and financial acumen in general, there's going to be spectrums from for most people, this bucket is their strategy is extreme avoidance because it's an uncomfortable conversation because over 60% of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And so how do you provide information for those individuals to just get them started and not just make it easy for them versus the other end of the spectrum where people are very savvy. So I would say just get in a few workshops. Maybe you connect with your group benefits advisor or a financial planner and specifically outline that, hey, this isn't a sales session. We want to educate our employees. And then if you want to go further, well, or you want to meet the needs of everyone at different ages and stages, well, I think services like Electrify are available, but people don't know how to ask for them because they haven't existed in the past. So that's a challenge for us off the bat. But just getting a few workshops in and orienting people to just get comfortable with the topic and make it easy, make it attractive, provide some incentives for people to go. Maybe a free lunch is included.
Free food's always good. Throw in some like free, cocktails, beer, wine. So maybe not during work time, maybe after work. But one thing that I always did, back in my day as an HR leader is, I always made sure that we had sessions that were actually teaching people what are the different parts of investment and debt finance, also accounting. Not just telling people, okay, so this is a mutual fund, this is a stock, this is an RSP, this is a Lira, whatever they are, but actually explaining to people how they actually work and then how they can actually, get involved with it. There are so many different instruments out there. There's different ways of budgeting and expenses, credit cards, all of these kinds of things that people didn't really have an understanding of it. The other thing too is around, if you're in the tech industry, there's a lot of things like stock options and obviously equity and so on. Most people didn't really understand how those things worked. Cliff met, but how did it impact your taxation? All of these types of things. And so, they didn't understand what the actual stock option agreement was talking about, and all of these things. And so, I think it's really important, for organizations to really understand or to teach them the people every single part of the total comp package and know what it meant, not just base salary or just bonus or commission. I think people really appreciate that. There's a bit of a stigma, actually. Some people feel like it's almost like embarrassing that if they don't know something when it comes to finances, and they would rather not ask the question or make it appear that they do know the answer when they really don't. And I don't know why that is, but to your point, I think it's really important to start from a place of just teaching people the basics.
There's a lot of shame connected to and low self-efficacy around money and topics of money. Like, I'm a first generation Canadian. I didn't see great financial education in my parents' journey, and that just they weren't fortunate enough to receive that. And I feel like that was lacking in my formal education as well. And
Yeah.
right now, when I look into my kids' journey, who are ages 4, 6, and 8, I don't see that in their journey. And so I want to change that. And I think it takes a bit of a crazy entrepreneur to want to change that. And so one of our goals is Electrify to be in every hand in every country. And in the future, we want to give Electrify to kids at schools for free. And so I really believe that that's where it needs to start, but I don't have enough experience in that area at this time. And so I understand the markets that we're working with right now, and that'll ideally help us to achieve our purpose.
For that year, the crazy, that I always say to people, not crazy enough. So, but it's been great getting to know you and your personal story. Obviously, you built a fantastic product. And so, Antonio, I want to thank you for being here. Once again, this is the Unmuted Podcast. I'm Jeff Waldman, your host. So please chime in, share your thoughts and comments and questions. All of our episodes are on our website, GoScaleHR.com, which is being rebuilt, and we're going to have a brand new website next month. And so that's coming soon. And then obviously on our YouTube channel. Wow. So, Antonio, thanks for being here, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Jeff.